You're listening to Infertility Bites. It's a catharsis podcast. Infertility bites, but it bites a bit less when you're not alone. My name is Casey, and I'm blessed to be joined by my co-captain in this journey, my wife, Sarah.
Hello.
On this series, we're going to talk about our experiences dealing with infertility. It's important to note, however, that we are not doctors or even experts, just people that understand how difficult it can be. Each person's journey is unique, so like a fingerprint, so it's best to leave all the medicine and all that up to the professionals. Last episode, we talked about costs, how they can add up depending on what your journey requires. Make sure to, if you haven't, to check out that episode and to let us know how the costs differ in other locations, like your neck of the woods. This episode, though, is going to be a bit emotional. Yeah. So trigger warning on that. We're going to talk about why we advocate not waiting to start treatments. So, Sarah and I got married in 2008. And when we first got married, we thought, hey, we're fresh married. Let's not rush into being parents yet. Let's have some time just to ourselves. Yeah. Let's just enjoy that.
While we dated, we both knew we wanted kids, but we also just wanted to enjoy being newly married.
Mm-hmm. So we took about 2 years or so, and, didn't try. I mean, we didn't not try, but we didn't try, It wasn't until about 2 to 3 years in, so putting it about 2011, or moving backwards in time, 2011 or so, that we decided to start trying. And then, of course, with any infertility journey, it's usually about a year before any of the doctors will really start worrying about anything, really start caring. So that puts it at about 2012. We start talking to doctors at that point, and they're like, oh, well, let's try this, let's try that. We've talked a bit about this before. How most of the stuff that they had us try was ineffective, and kind of a waste of our time, really. And after a year of that, we should have went and said, hey, let's go talk to a specialist. But we didn't, and we didn't for a lot of reasons. We didn't because we were like, well, we'd like to be in a better financial situation before
money was a lot of it.
Before we start doing this. Or we'd like to be more secure in our jobs before we start doing this. Or, we always wanted to move to Omaha where we now live. So maybe we'll wait until we move to Omaha before we start doing this. Or, maybe I'll get a promotion and we'll start doing this. Or pay down the house or whatever. There were always a lot of what ifs that waited. And it wasn't really until about 2017 or so, late 2016, that we really said, let's get serious and try for this. Let's do this. So that's, 6 years of trying before we actually talked to a specialist. Well, in that time, situations can change drastically amongst families and amongst people just in general. One of the things that happened during that time was the unfortunate passing of my wife's grandma, who she was very, very close to. And so this person that we wanted to be a part of our child's life, no longer with us, right? And it hurts. It hurts us often. We think about how much little Stella is missing by not having great grandma Betty. And it's tough. And you might hear me talking a little bit more in this than Sarah, because dear sweet Sarah is very emotional, and hits her hard. Um, when we finally did end up going to the doctor, the RE here in Omaha, Dr. Delaney at Methodist Women's Health, and started on a plan, and eventually were able to get through IVF, and we've talked about a lot of that stuff already. When we found out she was pregnant, it was right around her birthday in 2017. And of course, like we said, it was already too late for us to have any idea of Granny being a part of Stella's life. But by this point, my own father, who'd been battling Parkinson's for, at that point, 13 years, started to take some turns for the worse. So here we were finally pregnant with the child that we'd wanted for so long. And we've talked about how, the worry continues during that. Well, one of the worries that was always in my mind through this was, will my dad still be around? And fortunately enough, my dad was still around when Stella was born.
Yeah.
And so he was one of the first people to see her in the hospital. He was
the first person besides us to hold her.
Yep, first person to hold her. We have pictures of it. He loved her so very much. But just about 6 months later, things took a big turn to the worse for him. And in September of that year, he passed. September of 2018. Sorry. And I was at his bedside when he passed. And we were taking turns being with him. He was basically unresponsive at the time. We knew it was coming. It was a very fast downward turn, but we knew it was coming. And so I have Stella sitting on my lap. She's about 6 months old. And my mom had to step out of the room with some of her sisters and some uncles and stuff like that had come to visit, to talk to them and talk to the doctors a bit. And so I have Stella sitting on my lap right next to the bed that my dad's laying in. And again, he's basically unresponsive. He hasn't said a word since in like the last day or so. And Stella starts doing the little thing you see babies do when they're at the side of a bed or a table, where they start patting on it with their hands and everything. And I swear, my dad said, "Stella." And it was the last words that we heard from him. And I was the only one who heard it. So it could have been all in my head. But to me, that's a memory I'll always have. But it makes me angry because we wasted 6 years with all of these doctors who poo-pooed infertility and said, oh, just try this, just try basal body temperature, just try try these ovulation tests, try all this, try all that. And it took 6 years before we finally found a doctor who said, you need to talk to a specialist. You're past what I can do. And that's 6 years that Stella could have had with her grandpa. That's 6 years that she could have had, 4 years she could have had with great granny.
Yeah, like for me, and I mean, Casey knows this, I only grew up with Granny. I didn't have any other grandparents. So for me, Granny moved to Kearney when I was 1. So, I mean, literally she was there. All my memories are with her. I mean, she was always involved. So for me, it was super important for our our child to have as many grandparents as possible because I didn't have it. And I mean, I was lucky enough to have Granny, don't get me wrong. But, I look at Stella and I just think, oh God, Granny would have just been so thrilled to see her. So yeah, I just get angry.
So that plays a big part into why we advocate for starting treatments as early as possible. When you feel you're ready to have a baby and you've given it enough time trying the natural way, start fighting for yourself. Because every one of those days that passes between you wanting to have a baby and you doing everything it's possible to have that baby is a day you can't get back. But it goes even deeper than just Granny and my dad. We had all sorts of plans that we wanted to happen. I had cousins near my age, and Sarah didn't. Yeah. And we really liked the idea of...
Well, I've seen your family and how close-knit they are. But you had so many cousins, and they were all so closely related. And I'm thinking, my first cousins, when I was in my 20s, early 20s, they were close to getting their 50s. Mm-hmm. So my second cousins were a little younger than me. And mind you, they didn't even live anywhere near in the states I lived in. So, I mean...
So we had all these goals to try to have Stella where she could have cousins. Of course, we didn't know it was going to be Stella, of course, But to have a baby, have our baby where she could have cousins near her age, near their age. So Sarah's sister had a daughter, and Sarah's brother shortly thereafter had a son.
Like literally 2 months later.
Yeah. And then a few years later,
2 years later,
Sarah's brother had a daughter. So there's 3 cousins there. And
they've done a whole, I mean, granted, we still all live different states, but for them being different in states, they always made an effort to get together.
Yep.
And still,
And so we were like, okay, come on, let's have this kid so it can be somewhere near that. I mean, maybe a few years younger or whatever. Maybe right around the Sarah's brother's daughter's age, a little bit younger than that. That's fine. And it kept not happening and not happening. And they got older and older and older than our daughter would end up being. And your sister's daughter is what? 10 now? Just turned 10?
Just turned 10.
And so she's 7 years older than our daughter, and that's a significant difference. Plus, add to that, at the time when we first started trying to have a kid, Sarah's sister lived here in Omaha. And we had goals to move to Omaha so we could be closer to Sarah's family. I've got a brother who lives here. His kids are all, like, one's in college, one will be graduating in a year, I think. So older. But we were like, we could move to Omaha, and then Stella will be able to see her cousin often. And right after we
started the process
and got into it and got to the point where we were pretty...
I think we had confirmed we were pregnant because it was early on into it, and I remember thinking I can't cry too much that they're moving because I'm in the early process of being pregnant.
So we're just pregnant and just excited about this, and we get notified that Sarah's brother-in-law got a job in a church, which they'd worked in churches. That was their vocation, right? but he got a job in a church down in Florida and moving far, far away. So because we waited, because we didn't start the process as soon as we wanted to, we missed the chance for Stella to grow up next to a cousin near her age. And these are all little things that are always going to make us angry about the wait, about all of the little things that doctors told us. We had a doctor said real infertility is rare. We just need to figure out what little kick you need to get you in the right way. We had doctors who would make jokes about, well, it's all the practicing that's really fun. And what we needed is, after a year of trying, we needed a doctor to say, well, geez, this looks more serious than what I can do.
Well, yeah.
Let's get you to a specialist. But they didn't. And a part of the anger has to be on ourselves, because we didn't ask for a specialist. We didn't advocate for ourselves. We assumed the doctors knew what they were doing, and were going to be able to figure something out, and they didn't. And rather than them saying, well, I don't know what's going on, let's get you with the specialist, they just kept throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks.
Yeah. And I always felt, going back to the doctors a little bit, I always felt that because of our ages. Because granted, when we started, when we really were like, I was 25, turning 26. I have to do math, so you're in your early 30s. But I always felt like they were like, oh, you're too young to have this problem. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and I was, like we said, I should have stood up and been like, it doesn't matter. If we want kids now, then if we've been trying for 2 years and nothing's happening, it doesn't matter that I'm 26, 27 or whatever. I always felt like that was, they were like, oh, you're too young. Like you've got plenty of time. But, then it comes to the fact that little things, I am so glad that my sister's daughter and my brother's kids got to know Granny, even for what little bit it was. But I will always be like, it's just missing.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince, he should have been here longer.
So we'll always have that anger. And I don't want you to have that anger. You can't control what happens to the other people in your life, the people that you love in your life. If they're getting older, or if they're battling illnesses, or if they've got jobs that'll move them away. You can't control that. But you can advocate for yourself and try to control having the kid when you want it. And I know we were super lucky that we didn't require years and years and years of expensive IVF treatments and failures. We were extremely lucky at that, and a lot of you listening to this aren't going to be that lucky. But that's all the more reason that you need to start trying and start doing everything you can now. Because you don't get these days back. So because I talked a little bit about my dad, and because this is a lot about not waiting, I thought it was would be kind of fitting to include something that my dad was a big fan of. My dad really, really loved this. It's really an essay, but some places call it a poem, by Robert Hastings. My dad was a photographer, and he would put together slideshows that were multimedia, music and image, and him talking about things. And he did a slideshow based off this, and he kind of lived his life based off this. And they even played the slideshow at his funeral. And it was kind of the eureka moment for me that made me decide that first opportunity we get, we were moving to Omaha, whether it was the best option or most ideal option at the time, because we always wanted to come here. And things were
Not
always in
getting
the way.
younger.
We had my dad battling his illness. We had Granny battling her illnesses. We had the house, and we had jobs in Kearney. We had all this stuff, and things never lined up, and we kept putting things off. Well, this poem, this essay by Robert Hastings, it's called The Station. And I figured this would be a good place for me to read it. Bear with me, though. I can't guarantee I will read it in one continuous take because it is emotional for me. And I'm not nearly as eloquent as my dad is, so I'll never live up to that. But The Station by Robert Hastings. Tucked away in our subconscious mind is an idyllic vision. We see ourselves on a long, long trip that almost spans the continent. We're traveling by passenger train, and out the windows we drink in the passing scenes of cars on nearby highways, of children's waving at a crossing, of cattle grazing on a distant hillside, of smoke pouring in from a power plant, of row upon row of corn and wheat, of flatlands and valleys, of mountains and rolling hills, of biting winter and blazing summer, and cavorting spring and docile fall. But uppermost in our minds is the final destination. On a certain day, at a certain hour, we will pull into the station. There will be bands playing and flags waving, and once we get there, so many wonderful dreams will come true. So many wishes will be fulfilled, and so many pieces of our lives finally will be neatly fitted together like a completed jigsaw puzzle. How restlessly we pace the aisles, damning the minutes for loitering, waiting for the station. However, sooner or later, we must realize there is no one station, no one place to arrive at once and for all. The true joy of life is the trip. The station is only a dream. It constantly outdistances us. When we reach the station, that will be it, we cry. Translated, it means, when I'm 18, that will be it. When I buy that new 450 SL Mercedes-Benz, that will be it. When I put the last kid through college, that will be it. When I've paid off the mortgage, that will be it. When I win a promotion, that will be it. When I reach the age of retirement, that will be it. I shall live happily ever after. Unfortunately, once we get it, then it disappears. The station somehow hides itself at the end of an endless track. Relish the moment is a good motto, especially when coupled with Psalms 118, verse 24. This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. It isn't the burdens of today that drive men mad. Rather, it's regret over yesterday or fear of tomorrow. Regret and fear are twin thieves who would rob us of today. So stop pacing the aisles and counting the miles. Instead, climb more mountains. Eat more ice cream. Go barefoot oftener. Swim more rivers. Watch more sunsets. Laugh more and cry less. Life must be lived as we go along. The station will come soon enough. So that's why when you hear us talk about doing everything you can right now, that's where we come from. We come from people that, while we're blessed to have a beautiful, beautiful, now 3-year-old daughter, we missed out on so many chances because we were waiting for a station. We were waiting for us to get the promotion at our job. When I get the promotion, then we'll be able to try for a baby more. When I get a better job, that will be the time when we can start our fertility treatments. When we pay down the mortgage a bit more, then we can start fertility treatments. When we get our taxes back. Then we'll be able to start fertility treatment. We kept waiting for a station rather than doing what we needed to in the moment. And we don't want anyone else
No.
to sit there and think, Pop would have loved to see this baby, but he can't. Nana would have loved to see this baby, but she can't. It would be nice if our baby had a cousin her age, but they don't. Boy, I'd love to raise this baby in this town we really want to live in, but we can't. Don't wait. Every day I see a post on one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of, or on Twitter, of someone talking about infertility. And almost every day there's at least one that says, we can't afford to do it right now, but I'm getting prepared for later. We're not ready to start now, but I want to know what to expect when it happens. We haven't been trying quite yet for a year yet, so maybe we won't need it, but I want to know. Don't wait.
No.
Talk to an RE. I'll see posts. There's saying, hey, my OB/GYN wants me to do this. I haven't talked to an infertility specialist, but I'm thinking this. They don't know what's going on. Should I talk to an RE? Yes. If you think that you are past the point that your regular doctors can help you, yes, talk to an RE. And we're 100% happy to recommend. We cannot recommend her any more than we do. Dr. Delaney at Methodist Women's Health. We hear good things about Dr. Doherty at Methodist. Yeah. We hear good things about Dr. Oakes at Methodist.
And, I mean, personally, I know I had to call a couple times just about the most random questions, and the ladies that answered the phones, they were super nice, and I'd be like, this is probably a dumb question or something, and they're like, no, there's no dumb questions, don't worry. Their whole job is to put you at ease, because they understand that this is a very stressful thing. And so, I mean, they answered every question literally I would just call up. I'd be like, I don't know about this. I should just see what they say I should do or how to go about it. And they would just be so helpful. They never rushed me off the phone, which I can tell you when I was in Kearney, I had not the best experience at the place we were going. So when I would call about things. So I'm just saying that is important because, you got to be able to trust where you're going.
But as much faith and recommendation as we give to Methodist Women's Health, I see the same number for Heartland Fertility here in Omaha. I see a fair amount of people talking about Pope Paul. I see a fair number of people talking about going to Colorado, Denver. Yeah. There's a fertility clinic there. I see people talking about flying to New York to do fertility treatments there. Whatever works for you, do it. But just start doing it. Don't wait. Because you can't get those days back. You just can't. And I know I will forever be angry at myself and at the doctors and at time. Because my daughter does not get to know her grandpa.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll wrap things up today. We don't have a story to share. I mentioned on the last episode that we've run out of stories from our listeners. And this show really only works when listeners submit their stories. So no matter where you are in your journey, whether you just now are starting to see a fertility specialist, or whether you've been doing it for years, whether you've already got your miracle baby, or you're still trying for it. We want to know your stories. You can go to our Facebook page or our Twitter, or you can email us, infertilitybitespodcast@gmail.com. You can send us your stories. That way you can email us and we'll send you a link to the Google Docs that you can fill out to help us tell it better. If you know a friend or a family member who's in the process of this, let them know that they can tell their story here. We're happy to do it anonymous.
Yeah.
We do think it's for the best for most people if they stop being anonymous and start being open about it. But if you want to be anonymous, we're welcome to do that. But I know our listeners out there would love to hear more stories other than ours. And that's really what this podcast is about. Is not just us telling our side of things, but you getting your story out there. Letting people know that infertility isn't as rare as people think. That infertility isn't something to be talked about in hushed circles and whispered amongst people. So the links are all going to be in the show doobly-doos for our Facebook, our Twitter, the email address. The Google Docs is going to be right in there. Just click on that, fill it out, and let us know. We'd love to tell your story. If you are enjoying this show, although I can't imagine too many people are enjoying this episode because it is a bummer. But if you are enjoying our show, a review on whatever platform you listen to it would be great. They really help other people find this show. And if you're comfortable sharing this on your social media, if other people already know what you're going through and you're open about it, share this episode or any of our episodes on your social media so other people can find us that way. That's very much appreciated. But for now, we're going to wrap things up for this week. I always say, may your dreams of tiny feet be answered soon. Thanks for listening. And as always, we're going to let our little scientific miracle send us off with loves and kisses.
Bye.
I love you.
Hello.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Chewing. Mwah.